Aloha, guys. This is shieldheart.org presents featuring me, JR. So, there's a lot to do with no premarital intimacy, why people choose it or not, influences from the past, religions, and I'll name a few right off the top of my head that are obvious to me, and then we'll go through. I've got some lists here. But starting off with, it's, in a world oriented around celebrating the woman and her VV and just her womb and protecting and women, it's unloving to try to seduce somebody or engage in premarital intimacy because it's the man's responsibility to offer, to ask a woman to marry her, and then it's the woman's responsibility to, and anyone else she has, her guardians or what have you, to ensure that she is, even if she's not a virgin, but to ensure that she is as pure as possible, and because that's the only leverage that she has is to refuse sex, quote unquote, but also refuse any intimacy, dates, which are actually designed for marriage, because it's a public showing of, like, how do you show that you're married? Like, forget the ceremony for a second. How do you affirm your marriage and represent it to the world? It's by going on dates. It's by attaching one another with physical, sexual intimacy, and then there's like the verbal, and then just being around each other, like when you are like going on vacation, when you do certain things that are into your personal life. This is intimate, and people, it's like, the marriage ceremony is not that intimate. I mean, it is all of these things in terms of public showing and declarations, but it's not as intimate as the couple being alone on a romantic dinner, I would say, or the couple being, in the bedroom, or that kind of thing. So the prostitute paradox is where a woman will seduce a man with her body, and then a man will seduce her with his money, and it's an exchange. But it's what happens everywhere between men and women. They all do it, and they're exchanging maybe their body for body, maybe their financial benefits to coupling up, but they're not married, and so that shows that they don't truly love each other, and they're not truly committed. And people think that marriage is this, religious or governmental or institutional or oppressive, like a cultural expectation. But no, what it is it's simply what happens when you decide to get married and you really start more heavily thinking about how compatible you actually are, and it's that process of self-discovery. And that's why the idea of preparing for marriage is so useful to really loving yourself. And for example, what I do is I've been writing emails to my future wife, and I say things like, "This is your future husband," and "I love you, Miss Remus," my last name, and then stuff like, "I'm saving money for you, for us," and then I actually, it's important to have a clear sense of the amount of money you have, like if depending on how much you have, you might want to count down to the dollar, or down to the $10, or down to the hundreds of dollars, just to have so that you really feel like you're in control of it, and that you're doing it for them. You're living for them, and that's why premarital intimacy just confuses that, and it distracts you from the subtle focus of celebrating yourself and your love for this person, and the time that it takes to build up self-knowledge, self-love, financial, emotional stability, so that you can share that. Not everyone is marriage material. Not everyone's ready for marriage. That's why I want to help people get ready for marriage. Simple tricks like that, and then wearing a wedding band. That's another, I think, easy trick to constantly remind yourself that you're not available, you're not single, you're in love with your future spouse, and you're preparing for them actively, and that also consists of respecting other people and not trying to seduce them. The thing is let's see, it's half-hearted. It's a half-hearted action. It makes you feel like you don't know what you're doing. It results in obviously heartache and even darker feelings like feeling rejected or vengeful towards all these, that's all these boyfriend, girlfriend, that all leads to dark stuff, because it's like you're playing with dangerous, you're playing with emotions that are very powerful, and that control people and will make them do self-destructive or destructive things. All right, so and why do the question also comes up of why would a man want more than one woman? A woman's amazing, right? So, and this part of this has to do with the dynamic of it's like, is it better that women submit to be feminine, and the way of where it was mainly men that were in charge of things and in places of authority? I think there are all kinds of dynamics, and it's more of a question of, like, let's say there's a very dominant A-type woman, and then a more kind of easygoing thinker, not really a doer type of guy, and that they find that they match up well in that way. What's most important is the values that people have, because they might have discord and they might not agree on things, but it's like a shared either religious or spiritual, or like for me, some of my core values are no premarital intimacy. And by the way, I would think that would be a major core value of many religions, but if somebody was to ask you, well, what's the purpose of a religion? What are the results that it has? They might say stuff like, it makes people more loving or brings people together. Kind of abstract. I'm looking for specifics, like specific effects it has on the individual. And for me, I think for a religion, one should be to not only warn people that it's bad or they're going to hell for doing, for pursuing that unloving, existence of putting yourself as an object, and your body and your money to other people. but also all right, so what this is really about is it's about respecting each other in society. It's about respecting people's future husbands and wives. And if a woman, what is the ultimate expression of love, right? I would say it is a loving, sacred marriage that where both parties are not wanting to seduce one another. All right, so another thing is the idea of virginity. Well, for what men would prefer virgins, and for the thing is men have to work together in out of respect for one another, fellow man and women, because for women to be virgins, men have to be all virgins as well, obviously. No one can be intimate with one another, and then they can all get married and they can be in love and not be thinking of previous partners and not be thinking of memories and comparisons, but rather just experiencing and exploring together. And by the way, intimacy should definitely at least be had between yourself. That includes both men and women using toys and they should be having sex with themselves. That is what enables you to sidestep that sexual desire, which will affect your judgment, and it'll affect you from thinking from the heart, because that's the second chakra, the sexual energy. You need to activate that every day, and that allows you to enter into a higher thinking space. And all right, let's see here. What else do we have? So what this is it's like, how do I convince someone to not want sex before marriage? People might say it's being a prude, but that really means being prudent, which means thinking ahead, which means not wanting to create unnecessary messy situations. Could be physically, socially, or emotionally damaging. Okay, so let's see here. So even like we have to be aware that public schools, they promote this, right? And then people have asked, like, why wouldn't I want to be around women? Like how religions like Muslim, the men and women worship separately. It's because I respect and care about women that I don't want to be close to them, because everyone knows that if a guy's like talking to someone at a party or a gathering or even a church, that means that he's probably interested in her romantically. And that's not the most efficient way or the most loving way to meet someone if you're serious. If you're serious, if you're ready for marriage, then what you do is you can approach someone, or maybe approach their parents. That's common, and ask, tell them that you're looking for someone, but don't play it as a man. You never want to play like, oh, I hope this person likes me. It's like you're looking for someone with these characteristics, confidently. Obviously, there's a physical interest. That's what initially should be drawing you together. It's an initial physical interest. But what happens is, you look, and then you both kind of give each other nonverbal cues that you're interested, and then you could either approach her or you know people who seem to be her people, and then be saying you're interested in marriage, and you but you have these expectations, these qualifications, and they are your set of values, and then it's like, because that is my future wife, and then if they don't have that, and then maybe they can hear that you have that, and then they can think about it, and maybe if they're willing to adapt. But most likely is a lot of people either don't want to change, or it takes time. So well, and by the way, key core values, it should be like a small list. You should be able to quickly, it should be turn-offs and turn-ons, like non-smoker, like, but there should always be like 2 or 3 things that you evaluate people right away. Like for me, it's, do they value marriage and no premarital intimacy? And then veganism is another aspect of my life that's a core value. And so, and then okay, so part of the issue is, it's a society where public schools promote premarital intimacy because they're co-ed, so it's hard to kind of keep people away, and it's difficult. And then fathers will, they're not able to discipline their daughters if their daughters are, they're dressing inappropriately. Women kind of follow wherever they are, the authority. So for example, even if they have a husband and fathers and whatnot, and they're in a workplace, then they'll follow the authority of the supervisor there, and then that person may be able to seduce them, as crazy as it sounds. Or they might be in a school, and then their father might tell them, well, no premarital intimacy, but then there's obviously predatory and dominant men, even men older than her in school, that may be interested in her, and so she'll just follow them, what they want. And it's not nice to put women in those situations. But even if their mothers and fathers may try to protect them from that, but the thing is young guys, it's hard to control themselves around women, so it's the whole unfair situation to everyone involved. And all it does is make people do social comparisons, and there's sexual tension, and it's like a distraction from the actual task. What's the task? In school, you're to pursue education and improve the mind and body. In any case, I think there's fathers are afraid to lose their daughters, and these parents want to be like friends with them, but really the parents should be there to protect them more and teach them, more importantly than being friends. Like what women will do, there's kind of a dark element here. I'm going to say women will say things like, we have a right to do what we want with our bodies, and then that includes being promiscuous. And then they'll extend that to say, I don't have this on my notes. This is important. And also that women compete with other women, right? So they'll they secretly want to see other women reduced to being, lower status whores. And then even mothers are jealous of their daughters because their daughters are attracting, men that are the age of the mother. And especially if the mothers are single, they're gonna kind of, allow their daughters to be whores instead of protecting them from the 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 darker aspects of society. So let's see. So there's this idea of, would somebody want to have sex right away with someone if they like looked at or were interested, and then there's this kind of game that plays out of how long will the woman delay sexual access, quote unquote, until the man, you get the idea, until the man is able, until the man, it's like that's all she has, the woman. That's so why not just not allow any sexual access? And for that matter, see, it's not just sex, it's also, like I said, kissing, it's intimacy, it's closeness, it's verbal flirting, stuff like going on dates, doing things together. Why would you want to get attached to someone that you didn't feel aligned with in your values? Right, so almost there, guys. Let's see. So let's see. You want to be in love with yourself. You want to be having sex with yourself, and then this gets you to a more clear mind, and it's it's better to be that in that loving energy than being around somebody that you don't love, and so you're basically giving them your energy. What happens is people who are, like they say, a principled man will not, like, I wouldn't want to be intimate with a woman, if I was just physically attracted to her, met her. I don't have that need for her to activate my sexual energy. I'm doing that on my independent self. Yeah, so I wouldn't want that. However, unprincipled men, unloving men, maybe they're non-religious men, however you want to say it, they will want women's bodies, and women will want men as well, but they will especially want men's money, and their energy, their passion, and their attention. So this is just to realize that in a society, if nobody has values, if your only pursuit is just exist and then eat, go on vacation, sexual activity, dopamine stuff, like buying new stuff, that's all hedonistic, it's all pleasure seeking, and then that results in people wanting more pleasure and more pleasure, and then they end up caffeinated alcohol, and then they just have this, their life is, and then they're scrolling online. This is all just more and more dopamine oriented life, instead of having more subtle enjoyments, like satisfaction of just being in your wife's presence, making it about her, not making it about your private parts, not making it about your body, not making it about other relationships, but just making everything about her, like oral sex, and then massaging her, and just, that's more subtle, than the actual like physical intercourse. That's obviously an emphasis on the man and his action, his movements versus the woman, um, and so it's this subtle, like, just stable living, like exercise, healthy, enjoying your work. Working hard allows a man to build that testosterone that's needed to really appreciate a woman fully. And on a final note, premarital intimacy, a big part of it is actually it's birth control, and birth control is damaging. First of all, it's not as pleasurable as unprotected, into physical intimacy and sexual. So it's a tease, and you don't want to tease yourself. You don't want to, be in a boyfriend girlfriend that maybe you like each other, maybe you'll get married. Because it just feels like you're fake and you don't know what you're doing. And then there's the other thing, is birth control for women, the medication, right? Big pharma. You can't make money if you heal everyone. So it affects women's hormones and it changes them. Do some research into that. Thanks for watching. Aloha.